Alright, we're live. I'll tell the world, the whole world wants to know. Streaming Unreal tutorials. Streaming following Unreal tutorials. I don't want anyone to think that I'm creating one. Alright, so I have a pretty poor stream history. I'm terrible at streaming. And today we're going to have a very, very fun stream where I follow a tutorial, just in case you were worried that we might be doing something interesting. In order to do the games I want to do, I have to learn how Unreal does UI. So that's why we're here. We're here to learn how Unreal does UI. At the moment we're using this starter template, the puzzle starter template, which uses 3D objects as the interactables. And even the text, I think, is in 3D in the game world, yeah. So there's not a lot we can learn from that unless we want to make all of our UI 3D. So I've pulled up an old tutorial, an official one from Unreal, and we're just going to follow it. So their example is a drag and drop example, and that's kind of the hardest thing to do, so I figured that's what we could do. We're going to go ahead and follow it. And try not to hiccup too much while we do so. So they've got widget blueprints that they're creating. I don't know where widget blueprints are in this. There it is. So here's a widget blueprint. They have a drag widget. Now they're dragging around a health bar. We'll call it health bar because we don't care, but it's not going to be a health bar. It's just going to be something we can drag. And then they have one last widget that's the overall HUD. The icons have changed considerably. I'm not sure why it's a heart. I guess it was a heart in the old version too. Now it's a heart with a shack on top of it. Interesting choices. So, in the content browser, create a new blueprint class for the drag-drop operation. So we have to figure out how to find the drag-drop operation. Blueprint class. And then there's like a drag drop operation. There it is. It's also got a drag widget, but I think we just created that. Yeah. And call it widget drag. So this exists as a tool to give us details as to where we're being dragged. It handles presumably mouse down, mouse up, deltas, positions, that sort of jazz. Now we're not actually trying to create a widget that can be dragged all over the screen, but we're going to start by creating that because it is the nature of things. So we have to open the widget drag blueprint. Here it is. And we're just going to check and make sure I haven't missed anything obvious. There we go. Oh, there are too many windows open. I have to follow a tutorial while looking at two different chat boxes. Not that either chat box has anything in it, but you know how it goes. Alright, so we want a new user variable, which we're going to call widget reference. Reference, there we are. And they're using a user widget type. Wow, there is a user widget type. Huh, that's interesting. I didn't realize there was a superclass for user widgets. Good to know, I suppose. And we're going to want to expose it. And There we go. So the idea is that's going to point to our draggable object. Save it, compile it, and create a vector 2D called drag offset. That makes sense. I thought we were done. We're not. I'm not even close. Drag offset. And obviously we're gonna vector 2D it. Chapow. And also expose on spawn. Interesting. Why would we want to expose that on spawn? I suppose we'll find out. Compile and save it. Okay, so it can't be exposed on spawn without being instance editable. Editable. Makes sense. Compile and save. Open the drag widget blueprint. So the drag widget itself is over here. Create a user widget variable again. Okay. This is exposing the wrong thing. There we are. And once again, we are going to want to change it to a user widget. Chapow. And, oh, we can zoom down here, I see. Boom, it's all good. Compile and save. So, the last thing we actually need, this just apparently controls where our widget that we're putting on top of this goes. So now we need to create the widget that goes on top of it. So to do that, we're going to open up the health bar and we'll delete the canvas panel in the hierarchy view. Ciao. Add a size box. Okay, so now we're just creating an object that's visible on screen. So in order to do that, I'm not sure how to add new things to this. No. Well, let's add a size box. That's a SOS box. So there's no size box in there because that's just searching through the things we've already got. I guess we need to drag them from in here. Yeah? So there, size box. Okay, so the size box is apparently quite similar to a canvas, but we'll be able to restrict it to a portion of the screen. I think that's what's going on here. And add a progress bar to the box. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and do that just because otherwise we won't be able to see the box. So we'll just drop that in there. And now we can set the width and the height override. We'll go ahead and say 550. Since that's what they recommend. So that's fine, at least at the moment. And we can change the progress bar. I think this is the progress bar, but I don't really care. We don't need to worry about that at the moment. I guess we should make it a color, just because if it's black, it might be a little hard to see. Oh, well, it's already set to being bright blue, but for some reason, is it empty? Is it at 0%? Is that why it's black? Yeah, we'll just set that to 1. That's not a percent, but it's okay. Okay, so now that we've created it, we have to make the graph that responds to it. So that's what we're going to do now. Swap over to the graph here. So we've got some events that we don't have on this list. We need to have on mouse button. Why is this not showing? Do I have to expand all of the? No, that's not what I wanted. God damn it. Reduce, delete, get rid of it. Okay. I need to, do I have to do it in here? So over on the left, they clearly show that there's this functions, and then we can add it here. But you can see that this just adds a function. It doesn't let me add a specific function. There's probably a way to do that. This is an older tutorial from, I think, 4 point something or other, and I'm in 5, so it's obviously 36 overridable. So there we see the here it is, on mouse down. And on mouse up. No, on drag detected. There we go. This is interesting. Why is this going... I suppose this is going on the surface widget because the surface widget is what catches the click. In my case, what I might do is make the surface widget unclickable, Like not respond to the mouse at all and have the underlying widget respond to the click? I'm not sure. Because this is like mixing it up, right? This makes the surface widget have to be responding to a click and assuming that it's going to be dragged, and then it's passing off drag responsibility to another widget, which is not very good compartmentalization. Normally what you do is you would have the underlying widget that actually handles all the dragging receive the mouse clicks, and the widget on top can be any visual you want. The only thing the underlying visual has to understand is how big it is. Well, either way, let's go ahead and start to edit these. On mouse button down, what we're going to want to do is add in an absolute to local. Now the reason we're doing that is presumably so that we know where the mouse is relative to us. So we'll just drop my geometry. There we go. And then we're also going to want to add in a get screen space, huh? Okay. Okay, so this just gets the coordinates that we need, and then this gets the geometry that we have. So basically, this tells it where we are. This tells it where the mouse is, and it just converts. It's much more simple than it looks. You would think that this would actually have like an expand. Well, it doesn't really matter. It's fine like this. And then we obviously need to do some settings. So to do that, we're going to go down to the variables, which okay, so we're actually creating a variable named drag offset here. So now we've got two variables named drag offset in two different classes in the same hierarchy. Okay. You're not doing a good job of compartmentalizing it all. Okay, so there it is, and we'll just have this pass into that. Right-click the graph and add a detect drag if pressed node. Okay. This is like super. This is these are functions I would not have guessed existed. These are very, very specific functions. So we need the pointer event. So let's just grab it. And the drag key. Do I need to worry about the drag key? No, I don't. Okay, that's fine. Connect the return value pins from detect drag is pressed to the return node. All right. Connect the exec pins. All right, so that should be it in theory. This is a pretty ugly function. Not a fan. That's okay though. We'll figure out how to clean it up later once we do a little bit more work. First we have to understand the concepts involved. All right, so now that we've created this function, we have this situation where it'll detect a drag on the on mouse button down. Presumably that will cause the drag event, so there's no, even though we can override the drag event function, we can't, it doesn't trigger automatically. We have to trigger it. Is that what this is? That must be what this is. All right, so let's move down here. Select the on drag detected tab, which does this guy here. From the on drag detected node, add a create widget node. All right. Really? Creating a widget? Why would we? Okay, so I think what's going to happen here is that when we get dragged around, we add ourselves to a widget that understands how to be dragged, then embed ourselves within that parent widget, and then when we're done dragging, we're going to be deleting the widget and putting ourselves back on the base UI layer. Interesting approach. I guess that's... I mean, it minimizes the amount of state you have to record, because if there is a drag widget, it is currently active and hogging the mouse. But still, that's really... I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, I better check and make sure I've got... Yeah, I've got audio. That's fine. All right, so we're going to want to create a drag. That's a create a drag and drop operation, which seems like it should be what we want, but it's not. We need to create a drag widget. It's just a create widget, which we then set the drag widget class. There it is. And we got a widget reference. So theirs doesn't have a widget reference, even though they specifically told us to have one. That's interesting. They show a screenshot of one without a widget, and then they bring it in. Okay, interesting. Helios, God of the Sun, says, do you listen to music while you do this? No, I can't listen to music while I'm trying to learn things. I can listen to music... I can listen to music while I do busy work or, you know, design or something. But if I'm trying to get through a tutorial, I can't. It just distracts me. So we're going to want the self pin down here. I don't know how to do that. Where is self? Is this self? Self. Yeah, I'm not a very good streamer. Sorry, Helios. I don't have the music to keep you all entertained. All right. So we now create that, and then we have to set this as the dragged widget. Helios likes my YouTube videos. Those are generally much better thought out than my streaming videos. I'm not a born streamer. So, you know, this is the sort of thing where after I do this, I might do a YouTube video about what I've learned, but unfortunately it's not really easy to do that until you've learned it. All right, so now we need the drag and drop operation node. Okay, so create. Oh, is it called drag and? Yes. So in this one, we need to change the widget to widget drag. And presumably this goes in here. And set pivot to mouse down. That'll keep it from popping when we click on it. Yeah, so that's good. Now we have to connect up a whole bunch of shit. So let's just go ahead and get a closer look here. The widget reference is actually self. Okay, I didn't expect that. It's fine. Self. The drag offset is, of course, the drag offset. The dragged widget is the default drag visual. Okay. The pivot is mouse down. And then this goes here. Oh. Come on. There we are. My biggest gripe with the visual editing in Unreal is the fact that the click portions are so tiny, and if you misclick, it does something catastrophically incorrect, like drag the whole window or disconnect something. But that's okay. It's just my fat fingers. All right, so They've got it set up so that if you click on an image, it pops up in full screen, but then when you hit back, it reloads the whole page, which has large images on it, and scrolls you randomly around, so now you have to track it down again. That's why most of these places use popovers when you click, rather than opening the image up in a new tab, or opening up an image in a new tab, rather than opening up an image on the same tab. So I'm scrolling around, trying to figure out where it is. Images are popping in and constantly rearranging the page. Scripting the onDrag detect function. I think this is what we just did. Yeah, there we are. Create widget drag. There it is. Compile, save. Seems fine. So now we have to figure out what the onDrop function is. Open the HUD widget blueprint. So that's the overall HUD widget that we created. I don't have anything in here yet. Open the details panel. Set the visibility to visible. Okay. We scripted the drag detection inside, I'm reading from the tutorial. We scripted the drag detection inside the health bar widget. However, when we release the left mouse button, we want to drop the bar in our HUD widget blueprint. In order for our HUD to receive hit detection, we need to make the panel visible. Even though there is specifically a... Okay, so we've got 3 different kinds of not hit testable. I see. So when I want to do this in the final version, what I'll be doing is I'll be creating hotspots to drop on rather than a screen-wide option, or something similar. We'll have to figure out exactly how I want it to be. Helio says, what are my thoughts on cookie clicker type games like exponential growth games? I don't really have a strong opinion on them either way, just because I don't play them. It's not something, there's not enough of me in those games. I can't do what I'd like to do. It just is following along with a script. So it's something that I can't really get along with. But I do like games where you do follow scripts, like a walking sim where you can't do anything except for what the script says you can do. I do like those as well, but they don't feel quite as grindy, you know? I have a phone, so I do play phone games, and I've noticed that every time I try and play a cookie clicker style phone game, I get bored real fast. There's just nothing in them that holds my interest. But that's not a damning thing to say, because there's nothing to the play of Yakuza that holds my interest, and everybody says that that game plays great, or those games play great. So, don't know. Everybody's got their own preference for, you know, the kinds of games we like. So now we need to add the health bar widget to the canvas. Really? Okay, I guess we're going to do that. Of course, we're going to do that first. Okay, that makes sense. So there, we'll stick the health bar in. It's supposed to be 500 pixels wide. It is not. Interesting. I wonder why that is. Well, we'll figure that out later. In the event graph, add an onDrop function. Cast to widget drag. Widget drag is the name of our custom widget dragging blueprint. We created the widget drag. That is, it's in the background so you can't see it. That is here, this. We created it. So when we do that, add a get widget reference. And drag offset. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're calling for these variables off of the thing we're dragging. So these variables are on the thing we're currently dragging, the widget drag class that we created. And we're exposing them here so that we can use them. Helios says, are you just learning aspects of Unreal right now? Yeah, I'm just learning it. Unreal's UI is a little bit strange, so I have to go through some tutorials, and I figured might as well stream that, I suppose. It's not the cleverest of things to do. In this tutorial, I don't know if this is great. This feels like it's something they did internally once 10 years ago and then just kept doing it. Because I can think of a bunch of ways to improve this already. This approach, it's very iffy. Well, we'll talk about that later. We'll have to figure that out later. Cops. Ah! Obviously, we're going to want to cast this, so we'll just drop that in there. From the My Geometry pin, add an absolute to local node. And again, we're just doing the same screen space thing. So once again, we're just casting into local. I'm not sure why they're at different heights. That really bothers me. That's fine, though. So we now have that set up. And then we're going to subtract this from widget offset. So we'll just do a minus. Right-click and add remove from parent, add to viewport, and set position in viewport. Okay, so this is where we're actually doing the work. So removing from parent basically deletes HUD elements or widgets, and they don't get garbage collected instantly. So what we do if we want to delete them is we remove them from parent and then just wait. But in this case, we don't want them to be deleted. What we want them to do is get re-added to the viewport. And then we also want to set the position. That's not it. There it is. So when we have that set up, we have to connect these values up in a very specific way. We get the widget reference. This is what we remove, and it's also what we add back in. I guess we'll move these up so that we get the little bit of spray. Helios says, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but what are your thoughts on card games like Hearthstone or Slay the Spire? I remember you saying you don't like card games that force themselves too much into being just cards. And, you know, how would you make a decent one? Well, my problem with card games is that they're trying to emulate a kind of game that exists in another medium. They're trying to be a tabletop game. And I mean, they're better at being a tabletop game than an RPG is. A computer RPG is a terrible simulation of a tabletop game. And a computer card game can be a reasonable simulation of a computer card game because of the constraints involved. But it's still something where they're not really showing the best they can be because they're trying so hard to use a kind of interaction that's not theirs. They're trying. It's like when a game tries really, really hard to be a movie, and you're like, oh, it's almost a movie. Hooray! I guess it's like it could be a game that actually works well. So I don't have a lot of respect for card games in computers just because they're a simulation of a tabletop game. The only time I really enjoy them is when it's a diegetic card game. So like if you're playing Witcher, for example, and you get into a round of Gwent, that's a card game that exists within a game. And so your character is putting down cards on an in-world table. And then I can sort of get behind it because, then it's been reprocessed back into being an actual card game. But whenever I see a standalone card game, it's like it could be a game instead. But that's just my personal dislike, It has nothing to do with their quality. You know what? You know what this needs? This needs pins. Let's do some pins. Can I move you? I know I can move you. Okay, so there's like a specific pixel. There we are. There we go. And then these lines, I don't know how to disconnect them. We'll just delete them. There we are. That's a little bit less nasty. Okay, so, and then of course, Pachow and Pajang. Alright. Compile and save. Oh. Oh. Scripting the drag widget. So in this step I'm reading the tutorial, we configure the drag widget, which is the visual widget we will be dragging in the viewport. Open the drag widget and replace the canvas panel with a size box. With a child border. Rename this to widget size. How do I, over here? Here it is. And set is variable to true. I don't know what this is. This is new. This is why you have to go through tutorials. There's stuff in them that you would never have guessed. Like, what does it mean that it's variable? Does that mean that the name can change? Don't know. Is there a mouse over? No, of course not. That would be too helpful. Check both width override and height override. We are going to set the width and height of the size box to reflect the health bar widget. Okay, so this is gymnastics that are required because they made something a long time ago and don't want to tailor-make simpler solutions for their own specific needs. I mean, maybe that's because they want to teach you how to do it, but this is a lot of overhead if you're trying to just teach the basic concept. All right, so they are suggesting that we change the color of this because it is very aggressive right now. Brush color. I guess it's called tint now. Yeah, this is the same thing. So we'll just go ahead and make it black since that's what they recommend. And in the event graph, off of event construct, there it is, event construct, add cast to health bar. And the object is widget reference. Okay. That makes sense. Get. Ciao. Alright, so if our widget reference is a health bar, and it should be, we set it up that way, then we are just going to get the sizes. So from the as health bar pin, add a get desired size. Okay. Connect the return to a break 2D. And then these are going to be used to set our set height override and set widget override nodes. There is no set height override. I think this probably changed. There's probably just a different way of doing this in Unreal 5. Helio says, do you enjoy answering questions or would you rather just work on the stream? I'm fine with questions. I can't guarantee that I'll notice the instant you ask them, since I'm pretty sure you asked that 10 minutes ago. But I'm happy enough to do it. So according to this, there should be some widgets that don't exist. There should be a set height override and set width override function from widget size. Okay, so this is widget size. There we are. So we have to get the widget size and then we can get the overrides. There we are. Okay, that's what I didn't understand. But whatever, it's fine. Okay, so we have these, and then we obviously just set them up with a Y and an X. These are probably backwards. Excuse me, I bet that was super loud. Sorry about that. Helios likes talking about gaming, which is just fine. Narellen says Gesundheit. Yeah, I sometimes sneeze without having the opportunity to mute the mic. Actually, the problem is this mic doesn't have a mute button. I would have to, I switched mics, and I'd have to reach down and hit mute on the amp. Actually, I have a mute hotkey, but it's for muting desktop audio, which isn't terribly helpful. Anyway, back to this. We set these with overrides and stuff. That's exactly how they've got it here, except prettier. So that's literally all we're doing. Okay. Adding the HUD widget to the viewport. Lastly, we need to add the HUD widget blueprint to the viewport in the character blueprint and enable the mouse cursor so we can see where we're dragging. Yeah, this is the part that I'm not so hot on. We need to add the HUD widget, this guy, in at the beginning of play. And now since we don't have a character, we have to figure out how to do this separately from the tutorial. The core problem is that there is this wonderful option here in the world to add a HUD object. Like, we can just type it here, HUD. Oh, well, there used to be. I don't know if I have it in the wrong place. Maybe it's level settings or something. There used to be the option to add a HUD, and it didn't actually. Here it is, this. This doesn't actually work. You see how it says HUD class HUD? In theory, that's the class we created, HUD, but it's not going to work. If we hit play, we're not seeing the health bar we created. And that's because that doesn't actually take a HUD element. It takes an arbitrary game object rather than a HUD. So what we really need to do is to just find another object that can spawn it in and attach it to the main camera. So here's our camera actor. I believe this is the thing that we actually have in the game. And we do have a puzzle player controller. Let's go over to that. Because the problem is finding the camera that you're putting the HUD in. And in this case, I've accidentally made this larger. I don't know how to shrink it again. How do you... What? Dear fuck. Of course, that's not gonna fucking work. And I can't undo it. Window... This was so nice when it was shrunk down and didn't waste all of my friggin' space. There it is. Collapse tab well. There we are. Okay, so we're going to look for the player controller we're using. Here it is. So here we've got our player controller, and you can see that it's set up to take VR ticks. But the thing we really need here is to add in another object here in begin event play. So this is unnecessarily complex because it's got VR baked in. They don't let you not have VR. So we'll just bring this off here, and we will add in a create HUD widget. There we go. HUD. And then we're going to add it to the viewport. I'm thinking, though, the adding to viewport might be... I mean, we might not have to put this inside the player. I'm not actually sure how tightly the player object is bound to the camera. It could be that we could just add in any old object, like a brick, that spawns in a HUD of our choice. I'm not actually sure. And then we turn on the mouse if we want to, but we've already got the mouse turned on, so we're not going to worry about that. And click the play button. Oh well, we have to actually click it from this window. Hey, look, there it is. It doesn't work. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in some debugging so that we can see where it doesn't work. Chances are I just failed to follow the operations exactly. We'll start with the health bar widget. This is the thing that's supposed to be responding. Helios says, how do you think mobile games should handle making money? I never play a game that has ads in it. I'm willing to let them tell me about another game they released, but just flat out ads, I always just uninstall immediately. But that's how I am. The ad economy is terrible and poisonous, but it's also what has become the standard. People don't like buying games for some reason, and that's why I don't play mobile games anymore. I have 2 mobile games that I just keep playing, and they're both puzzle games. And both of them were paid. Like I paid $5 or $10 for them. But I know that that's not feasible, right? If you can't get anybody to buy your games, then you're going to have to make your expenses back some other way, whether that's through ads or through some kind of, Prime subscription to the Google Play service or whatever. I find those repugnant. I'm never going to participate in them. So I hope that a lot of people do allow us to buy premium versions of their games that don't have ads or currency, real money currency in them. Problem is, a lot of games do both now. They're like, oh yes, buy our game to get 5,000 free in-game real money currency points. And it's like, the whole point is that your real money currency shit poisons your game. Your ads are almost as bad. I don't want that stuff. And here we have, right now, a spammer telling us exactly the sort of thing that I hate. We'll just block that guy. Oh, look, there's 2 of them. Block this one too. I could report him, but I don't want to spend 15 minutes taking screenshots. All right, so we're back in here on this graph, and we've got this situation where we're supposed to on drag detected, on mouse button down, these things here. First, let's make sure that on mouse button down is being Yeah, so first let's make sure that on mouse button down is actually being called. We'll do a debug. Shapow, and we'll just go ahead and say mouse down. Down! That's close enough. Now, I think there are other ways to do this. Like I could have this open in another window and attach it to a debug object. We're going to try that as well. So now that we've got this, I can set this up as, and I'm doing this off screen, you can't see it. And then when I click, okay, so I can see that it should be clicking fine. See that? And on this screen, I can also see it. Oh, well, I have to actually, yeah, there we are. Boom, see? So we are actually doing the full chain here. All right, so this is the first time I'm really using this debugger. Let's just go ahead and push it through here. So we're clearly setting this up correctly. The variable here is not in scope. So I can't really tell whether or not it's returning true or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a print string that happens based on what that value is, so that we can tell what that value is. Since I suppose I could like promote it to a variable, like is being dragged or something. Watch this value. Let's try it again. Are we watching? I can't tell. Doesn't this look different? Weren't we debugging? Stop. Okay, so... Oh, it's just too narrow. There we go. Not in scope, huh? So even if I say to watch it, it's not in scope. So we're going to want to promote it to a variable. I think new var 0 is probably the not greatest name for that. We'll call that being dragged or something. There we are. Event reply type. Oh, this isn't even... That's why it's not in scope. It's not... Well, maybe. I don't know. Let's break it. I can't break it? What's it called? There's a way to break it, right? Break. Struct. Set. Make set. Contains item. Operator. Divide. Wasn't there just like a break function? Is this an array? Okay, so this is a complicated value. So that's one of the reasons why I can't watch it, I think. Let's go ahead and unwatch it, since it's not actually being watched. What we're going to do is we're going to drop down into the dragging value here. No, not that one. I'm going to delete that. This one. We're going to see whether this fires. So this is on drag detected, and it never fires. So drag is never detected, even though the mouse clicking is detected. This just never fires. This is overriding properly. So what that means is that this is never firing off a return value that counts as a drag. See that? It's not... It's going through here, but the return value is coming back as something else. It's coming back as not drag. I can't break this return value as far as I know. Let's go ahead and promote it back into a variable again and see if we can get that variable to show up. Oh, it's not. There we are. All right, so now it got set, and if we take a look at this value, don't expose it on spawn, just create it as an instance. Yeah, okay, so let's go ahead and try it one more time. I'm just trying to get this variable to show me what's in it. I thought that I could just break variables. There was a function named break, and I thought I could just use it all the time. Clearly not, and unfortunately it's not telling me what these values are. You'd think that while I was watching something in debug mode, it would understand that I want to see what these values are, and it's not. Current value equals empty. It's always going to be current value equals empty. All right. So for some reason, this is never firing. This detect drag if pressed is no longer doing what it's supposed to do. Let's just quickly do a quick little search. Unreal detect drag if pressed in quotes. Okay, UE4 then, if not Unreal, whatever. Here we are. Given the pointer event, emit a detect a drag reply if the provided key was pressed. If the drag key is a touch key, it will automatically work. It doesn't tell me whether or not I have to specify a key or whether null works. Left mouse button in detect drag if pressed doesn't work. I'm currently making an inventory and everything works fine except for the left mouse button in detect drag if pressed. If I switch to the right mouse button, it works. Let's try that. No, it doesn't work either way. Okay. Oh, okay, so they've actually set the drag key up as being a mouse button. Let's see if that works. No. And once again, I'm assuming that we're not... Oh, okay, look, so that does work now. So the problem there was that I guess they probably told me and I missed it, that I had to switch that over to being a left mouse button. So now we have it working a little bit longer, but again, it's erroring out. We're not actually getting the widget we're trying to create here. So here we have this create widget drag. And I think that the issue is I just forgot to hook this up. Let's take a look. Just looking for a return node. That's on drop. We're looking for the on drag. Yeah, I just forgot to hook it up. I knew it was something stupid. So there were two mistakes I made, and that's not what I wanted. Just stop. There were two mistakes I made, and both of them were fatal. That's why doing tutorials in this sort of environment can be hard. If you don't know what's wrong, you won't be able to track it down. And that's why having a tutorial with a bunch of moving parts, like resizing shit, is bad. You don't want to add in that extra junk, because if I type any of it wrong, it's not going to work. And I will be looking in there saying, oh, what's working, what's not working. All right, so now if we drag it, now look, there it works fine. And it actually resizes to the correct size. I don't care about that. That's a glitch that we'll figure out later. So there you can see that we now have a fully functional drag and drop glowy bar thingy. So what I'm actually needing to create here, the thing that requires not necessarily drag and drop, but drag and something, we're going to be creating circuit elements, like little chips. They get laid out on a grid. And the thing is that they have exits. So we need to be able to drag the exit to point in any direction we want, so that the spark traveling through will get redirected in a direction of our choosing. Now, one way to do that would be to have like clickable buttons around the chip, so that whatever button you click on, that's the direction it goes. But I wanted to be a little bit better than that, because the direction it goes is going to be like a physical thing, right? It's going to be an arrow. So what I was thinking is you'd click on the arrow and drag it in the direction you wanted to go, and it would just snap or get nestled into the orthogonal directions. So that's what we're going to try and create now. We're going to try and create a version of this where it's got a chip in the middle and then an arrow key or set of arrow keys that we can drag to point in any direction we want. So let's start with that. So here are some of the things we created. We are not going to be doing it in the exact same way. We're going to try some alternative approaches. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pop up the HUD and delete this guy. We don't need him anymore. And that's going to allow us to do whatever we want with the new one. So let's create the new one. So we're creating widgets. We're going to use HUD again, but we're not going to use drag widget or health bar. We are going to need something to contain our object. It's not, so our object is inside another object. We're going to need to deal with that. So we're going to call this a computer chip. Just pop that up. And our computer chip isn't going to have a canvas panel. It's going to have just something that we can, we need to bound it. We need to have a border. Border is what we need, isn't it? I think so. So here's our border. We should be able to set the appearance of the border to a specific size, right? Or is that something that I need a size box to do? Okay, I need a size box to do that. So we're going to add in a size box first. And then we'll put in the border. And so the size box, we're going to want to have this size box be a specific size. We'll make it 50 by 50. Oh no, that's actually too small. So we're going to make it 200 by 200. But here's the thing. I'm not sure this is going to work because it didn't work before. So we're going to compile it and save it. And we are going to head on back to our HUD. And drop that in. So it's going to be a computer chip. Boom. That's not what we wanted to do. That's what we wanted to do. Kapow. See how it's not 50 by 50? It is a completely different size, or 200 by 200. It's fine. We'll just manually change it for now. Deal with that later. So if we look at the computer chip, that was the size we wanted, so it's fine. This is all good. So we're just going to save and compile this over here on the computer chip with our size of 200 by 200. Despite that, the size box here is not 200 by 200. It is very obviously not 200 by 200 because it's not square. So what value is that? There's got to be a way that I can set that value, right? More cops. What if I just make all of these? These are child layout elements though, right? This is not... that's not gonna do jack shit. Well, we'll figure that out later. It's a minor point. I've just manually set it up to be 200 by 200 here in our HUD. So now that it's in the HUD, we don't need the HUD anymore. What we do need to do is set up an object inside of this that can be dragged around. Now the problem with that is that Unreal doesn't do stacking. Unreal does not like nesting a class within a class. Or it might, but the rules are very strange coming in from something like Unity. So when we create it to have an exit arrow, we can't just put the exit arrow in here unless we want to do some strange things. So what we're going to do is we're going to create 4 drop points. But I don't know whether or not... well, let's try it. Let's first create 4 drop points. So in order to create the drop points, we are going... Well, they're not really drop points. You know what? Let's create the arrow first. We'll go back in and fix that up once we've got it a little bit more... Computer chip arrow. There we go. And obviously we do not need the canvas panel. What we do need though is, I don't know, an image. Let's put in an image. Pachow. Oh, pachow. Once again, it's just an arbitrary size. This is not 32 by 32. It's clearly not 32 by 32. It's 1280 by 720, like this is a fucking RenP game. There's something really basic and obvious that I'm missing here. There's something that is just so blatant that it's obvious. Named slot. That sounds like something we want out here. Let's try that. Named slot. Named slot. Allows you to expose an external slot for your user widget. When others reuse your user control, they can put whatever they want in this named slot. Don't know. We'll have to think about it. All right, so basically, if I don't have a size box, okay, so it's under the panel heading. Let's see what other panel heading elements we've got here. Canvas, grid, horizontal box, overlay, safe zone. Oh, that's nothing we care about. Scale box, size box. Let's go ahead and favorite that. Is that not a favorite button? What happened? Oh, that's weird. Size box. A widget that allows you to specify the size it reports to have and desires. Not all widget report a desired size for you to actually desire. Wrapping them in a size box forces them to be. So that's actually what we want. It just doesn't work. There's something wrong with it, where it insists that it should be 1200 pixels wide, regardless of... Well, that's because this is a child layout that we're setting, not the size box itself. Don't know. This is really quite strange. There's something wrong with how we're doing this. I feel like I'm pushing in a direction that the game engine doesn't want me to go, which means it's probably got an easy path that's not this. Well, we'll keep pushing through this way and see whether or not something obvious happens. I'm trying to think about ways I could do this without nesting objects. You know what? Let's try doing it without nesting objects. Let's try doing everything here in the computer chip. The problem I've got with this is that it's not the right size. Well, whatever, we'll try it anyway. So basically we need to have, is it another size box that we're going to need, or can we put another object inside of this size box and arrange it separately? Let's go back to having a canvas. Okay, so this canvas panel is now the wrong size because I've damaged it beyond belief. We're just going to drop it in at some default. It doesn't actually matter. That's good enough. But since it's going to be absolute, we're going to have to be careful about how we do things. There's some options here. If I arrange everything in the upper left-hand corner, then when I move it around on screen, I can move it wherever we want. Let's go ahead and get ourselves some commons. A border. Just drop it in here. Good chow. And we're going to make this a specific size, right? Yeah, see? I have the option to make it a specific size. And we're going to put it right at 0, 0, 0. With the anchor in the middle. There we go. That way when we move it around the screen, we're going to have it at an absolute center point. So from this, we also need to create some, we'll go ahead and make them images. So this image, we're going to make it 50 by 50, and we'll set this up with a very specific position of 0 and 100. And we'll go ahead and make it, again, 0.5, 0.5. Now we don't actually have any images, but all we're going to really want to do is change the border's color to something a little bit less aggressive. There we go. So the idea here is that image 11 here is going to be our out arrow. And what we want is to be able to drag this arrow around and nestle it in any of the 4 directions. So over here, we need to be able to add some graph elements. And we're going to be detecting a mouse click. But we have to detect that the mouse click is on the sub-object, not the main object. I'm not 100% sure how to do that. Let's go ahead and get the arrow here. Get out arrow. This is an object. It's a variable, but it's an object in our layout. And can we get widget events here? Capture mouse, has mouse capture. Will this work? All right, well, let's try it. Let's try some stuff. On mouse button, enter. On mouse, enter. Okay, so let's try this. So this is on, the problem is this is on computer chip, not on the arrow, right? We really want to have the mouse, the arrow part, the out arrow is what should be doing the work here. But all of our events, okay, this weird. All of our events are on the actual class, right? So if I break this, can't break it. Okay. How do I tell whether or not it is on the mouse button, whether or not it's on the out arrow or not? So we have a couple of things we could do. One of the things we could do is we could make it so that this isn't clickable. If we make this have just fall through rather than click response, that would mean that only the arrow could be clicked. It's actually a pretty good idea because then we can nestle another object, another object inside of this, and that will receive mouse clicks. So what we really want to do is make this object not exist. I want it to be like a visual for the sake of being able to see what the heck's up, but I don't want it to be clickable. Override accessibility. Can children be accessible? Accessible behavior, whether or not the widget is accessible. Okay, so that's not it. Tooltip text is enabled. Visibility. Not hit testable. Self and all children. Well, we want that just to be self only. All right, so that should do it. So now when we click, we know that we're going to be clicking on this because it's the only thing that's clickable. So when we go back over into our graph, we know that this is going to be on the arrow, because the arrow is the only thing that can actually be clicked. So we are going to go ahead and once again do the local position. So is it called something to local? Absolute to local. And then this is going to be absolute mouse. What is this? Position on screen? Get screen space position? I think that's it. I could double check if I cared, but I think that's right. Okay, so with this setup here, what we have is the relative position of the mouse to the thing we just clicked on. What's this return value? Oh, whether the event was handled. Okay, so are we going to do a drag event? I think we should probably do a drag event. Boom. Oh, come on. So we're going to go ahead and leave this as a drag drop operation class for now. We'll change that out later because we don't have a custom drag drop class for this just yet. We do have one that we could use, ours, so I might as well go ahead and switch that over, widget drag. That's the one we already created. It's not necessarily the right one, or we might have to modify it to be the right one. So we're going to want to have self here. And we're just going to go ahead and give it that drag offset. Payload. Okay, so hold on. What's going on here? What's the difference between widget reference and payload? Normally people create a new widget to represent the temporary drag. I don't want to. Okay, so in theory, this should create a response, but it's broken. Okay. Return value. I can't just set this value? What is it? Or event reply structure? So why can't this... So this is a dragged object. We'll deal with that later. This isn't just a true or a false. How the heck did I handle this before? Let's go back to the tutorial. Oh, that's a detect drag if pressed. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We need to actually forgot a widget here. So this actually happens in the onDrag function. Okay. Okay, we'll just keep doing this until we get it down. So we detect a drag if pressed. This is the value that's compatible. The pointer event, is this it? And we want left mouse. And then the idea here is that this gets saved. Whatever. So, why is there still a warning here? Okay, so that's just something that needs to be recompiled. Okay. So now what we need to do is override the drag. Undrag detected. There it is. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're just going to write a debug statement. And save it, compile it. And now when we hit play, yeah, so if we then set this up to be the computer chip, you can't see it because it's off the screen, but I can see it. It works fine. It doesn't do anything yet, but it works fine. And it doesn't respond to me clicking on this area because this area can't be clicked. Okay. So we now need to be able to drag this in a direction. What we really want to do here is not have a free drag. What we want to do is lerp our position towards one of 4 orthogonal valid positions. So what we're going to do is, there's like a sirens for days today. We're going to want to get that local position again. What was it called? Absolute to local. It is called to local. Okay, so what this is our where the mouse is relative to the center of our widget, which you might remember is not relative to the center of the arrow. The arrow is off center. It's down at the bottom. So what we really need to do is detect which of the 4 directions, the 4 orthogonal directions, this is closest to. We now have XY values, and so we can just determine which vector 2 coordinates it's closest to. There's a lot of ways to do this. We're going to brute force it by just manually creating, an array of vector 2's. We could also just do some brute forcing, like, oh, if this is greater than a certain amount, then it's that. Let's break this. Do some absolutes. Do a greater than. Not greater than, greater than. All right, so basically what we're going to do is we're just going to detect which direction we're closest to. And the way we're going to do that is by detecting the largest x and y after absoluting it, so that left and right are both going to work. So if the x is larger, then we're either to the left or to the right, and we can tell which one we're closer to by seeing whether it's positive or negative. So when we do that, we are going to want to just detect whether or not this is greater than or less than 0. So if it's greater than 0, we're off to the right. And similarly, we come down here. If it's greater than 0, we're towards the bottom. So all of these things are a little bit counterintuitive to me because I'm not used to how this works. You can see that these are not execution paths. These create just a return value. So what we need to do is create switches based on these. Can we make these into switches? No. Okay. So switch on, it would be a bool, right? So it's not called a switch, it's called something else. Fork? No. Branch. There it is. All right, so if we branch true, then we'll take the x values, and if we branch false, then we'll take the y values. And so if it's true, then we're either positive x or negative x. We're going to need some vector 2's here. Oh, you know what? We can branch switch. We can switch by float. You don't like floats? We can switch on int, I suppose. No, there should be a float. What is an e float types? The fuck is this? No, I want the opposite of this. I want to have some floats and provide one. This is why it's such a pain in the ass to learn things. It's like, how do I do a simple if statement? How do I make it so that if it's greater, it comes with 100, and if it's less, it comes with negative 100? Another thing I could do is just make it 100. Let's go ahead and do that. I just want a float. How do I create a float? Oh, select float. This is what I want. Okay, good. So there we go. It's called a select. And then we're just going to have the same thing down here. And then we're going to make a vector 2. And this one's going to go into x. This one's going to go into y. And then we're going to select vector 2. Is there no select vector 2? Does it have to be cast to a vector 3? Because that's going to cause us some issues. All right, so there's no select vector 3. So what we're going to have to do instead is branch. This is not actually needed. What we're going to do instead is we're going to select float again. So delete this, select float. And that's going to be, if it's true, is this, what gets picked which way? If true, A is returned. Just making sure. So, and then down here, we're going to have the same setup, but in reverse. And then we'll just make that into a vector. This seems like it's an awful lot of work. Arrow target position. All right, so we don't need any of this junk. I have a feeling I'm going to think of a better way to do this, but for the moment, this is all I can think of. So Drag drop operations. Drag operation that was detected. I have a feeling this isn't going to work. There's going to be something wrong with it. But we'll try it. We'll see what happens here. So the idea here is we're going to keep an eye on the arrow target position, and hopefully it should flicker around correctly. Okay, so it's firing. However, I have no way of knowing what the arrow target position is because for some reason, I don't know how to get it to display the current values of the variables. Like, you'd think that would be something that would be super important for a debugger. So I'm sure it can be done. I just don't know how to do it. Like, clicking on them doesn't actually tell you what their current value is. Just what their default is. More cops. Damn. So if I were to find it, can I find the HUD? Here's the HUD. And I know that inside the HUD there is another object, but it's not actually listed as being inside the HUD. It is listed as a computer chip. I don't see it. Don't know how to get at the computer chip inside the HUD here. All right, well, in that case, you know what we're going to do. We're going to debug it. All right, so you can see how it says y equals 100. That is correct for when I'm clicking, so that's a good sign. But it's clear that the drag operation isn't properly seeking. It's not properly dragging. I don't think we need it to. I don't think we actually need a drag drop operation. I think what we need to do is when the mouse click happens, we have to start tracking where the mouse goes. Because we're not trying to give the player the option to drop anywhere. But another option we have is to create a drag-drop operation. The problem is that the drag-drop operation seems to be responsible for things like what happens upon mouse up. If we take a look at our drag-drop operation that we created, this bad boy, it doesn't do anything. It just has some variables that it surfaces. That's interesting. Let's take a look back at the things we created. The health bar and the drag widget. So the health bar has us on drag detected, and when the on drag is detected, we create a widget drag class. The widget drag class just has variables. It doesn't do anything. It's just a struct. Then it's the drag visual that's responsible for now this is the widget drag visual. I don't see anything here. That's the widget. This is the drag widget. Here it is. I got widget drag and drag widget backwards. So the drag widget, all it does is resize itself to be the same size as whatever it's dragging. It does nothing else. So those two play no function except to be arbitrarily useful at visuals, right? If we take a look at the health bar, so at some point we come out of the drag, right? Let's go ahead and see where we got the on drop here. Oh, it's in the HUD. The HUD handles the on drop. So the idea there is that the HUD covers the whole screen. So the HUD catches the mouse up event and tells the whole thing to stop dragging. That means that... Let's see if we can just capture... I don't need this. Go away. Let's see if we can just capture the mouse. If we come over here into the on mouse button, this here, let's see. We should have a capture mouse function. That's not how you spell it. Here, capture mouse. Ciao. All right, so reply. This seems incorrect, but let's try it. Compile, save. No, it definitely didn't work. Reply pin is invalid. Must have something wired into it. By ref params expect a valid input to operate on. Well, what is it? Well, it lets me wire in the detect drag, but then it throws an error. Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay. All right, let's try it. So now we have it so that it captures the mouse when you try and drag. Let's see what that actually does. All right, well, that doesn't seem to be doing quite what I need yet. But I think that what we need is to override some other things. So here we've got mouse detected, mouse button down, mouse button up, mouse move. So I think that if we have captured the mouse, we'll have mouse move functioning. That's what we're going to try. Once again, I'm going to put it off screen. And then do a computer chip and see whether or not... Okay, so mouse move works whenever the mouse is on top of it. It doesn't require mouse capture. And once I've clicked and told it to capture the mouse, it doesn't continue firing. So that means that capturing the mouse... Oh, okay. So it definitely captured the mouse. And it's firing now. Okay, so the problem there is that... I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened there. It's definitely working. All right, so I think it works. Let's find out. Let's go ahead and add in an on mouse up. There we are. And we will do a lose mouse control. What is it called? Focus. If capture. It was called capture. Release mouse capture. Can I do this? This is going to error, isn't it? Yeah. What the fuck is a reply? Emit the detect drag reply. Why isn't release mouse capture just a function? Why does it require... Oh, it's under the event reply setup. Let's see whether or not... Is there another one that's not under the event reply setup? get mouse event, get mouse position on platform. These are all... Okay, hold on. If I get this, this is not going to do jack shit. Okay, so that's not it. You would think that release mouse capture would be an event that could be called, like one with this kind of pipe, but instead it's being returned through this reply structure. I don't know how to get a reply structure. End drag drop. That also requires a reply. So make event reply? Do I have to make it? Oh, this just smells. There's something wrong with this. So here we're going to get mouse capture. Is mouse captured? Something like that. Capture. Crapture. Has mouse capture. There it is. And then there's no event reply. We can't do it. I think that I'm misunderstanding the fundamental way that mouse works. So we're just going to do some testing here. So if we click, you can see how it turns into a plus sign. And then it stays as the plus sign as we move around. The problem is that on mouse move doesn't trigger. And then we mouse up. Okay, so on mouse button up. Alright, so on mouse button up does fire. I'm not sure why it remains in this plus state. It might be because the reply is invalid. So it works. It works as intended, with the small fact that it doesn't actually recalculate properly because it's in the wrong area. Let's go ahead and put the recalculation in the correct place. So here's the problem. This recalculation here needs to be in mouse move. So we're going to grab it and copy it and put it in mouse move. Paste. Yeah, didn't think so. So this vector 2D goes into the drag offset. Did I actually set it up to go anywhere? I think I set it up with a local variable, and that obviously isn't going to be good enough. So we're going to go ahead and call this target position. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and save that. Nope. Got a warning because I don't know how to return a value. Should I create a reply value? And just say, like, whatever, man. How does this modify the members? There's no... Presumably, if the event reply had values, it would show up in there. This is nonsense. I'm doing something very wrong with the mouse here. This is not how the mouse is supposed to be chained. Hmm. Yeah, so the mouse move, even if I capture the mouse move doesn't continue to fire. So this isn't going to help. Capturing the mouse is apparently worthless because the mouse move doesn't continue to fire even if I capture it. So we'll delete it. So detect drag if pressed is just to interact with the onDragged function. So we're going to need to do something else. We'll just check and see on mouse button. This should only fire when the mouse button is down. So if it fires at all, we're going to want to set a Boolean value called dragging to true. This is like old school shit here. This is fine if we can get it to work. And then we want to return something, but I don't know what we want to return. Can I return nothing? Can I return an empty? It's a warning. Return a reply such as handled or unhandled. Handled. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. This is what I want. I can just say I'm handling it. On mouse button up, once again, we'll return handled. And obviously what we're going to want to do is check and see whether or not we are dragging and set the dragging to the opposite one. There we are. So we're going to set dragging to false, but if dragging is true, we're going to want to reply with handled. Otherwise, we're going to want to reply with unhandled, right? Because we might be mousing up somewhere else. So, but is that going to work? Is this going to detect that the mouse button went up? Does every object in the scene get a mouse button up response? Let's check it out. Let's try it. No, don't. There we are. There we are. Clicking things. So if I mouse down and mouse up, okay, so that does work. I do get a mouse button up response. The question is, will I get a mouse button up response here? I don't. Okay. Okay, so capturing mouse focus will allow me to at least capture the mouse button up. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to want to do that same release mouse button. And grab mouse button. Because they do have more function than you might think. All right, let's see whether or not this works. On mouse button up, make sure it's selected, and then click and drag. That works. Now click off and then up. Oh, that works. Great. Oh, perfect. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. We're not using the built-in drag functionality. We are instead going to capture the mouse manually. Problem is, on mouse move doesn't actually fire during this sequence. And the reason for that is because it only fires in specific situations, and this is not one of them. What we really need to do is have a mouse drag response, right? We do want it so that when we are dragging the mouse, we need to be able to get a movement. We need to understand that when something is moving, we are getting a response. And that's what this is for. This is for that. So in theory, what we should do is we should not only capture the mouse, we should also get a drag set up here. Now the only issue here is that this has to be a left mouse rather than... It's hard to believe that that's necessary. We'll have to just test that later. So at this point we are telling it to detect drag. So we're going to go ahead and take a look and see whether this fires because we're dragging. And super useful for you to be able to see it, but unfortunately not. Okay, so I have moved the mouse over to here, and it's not receiving any drag calls. So it looks like both the mouse move and the drag and drop both don't actually listen to the mouse capture. Both of them ignore mouse capture. So the last thing we need is a tick. Let's see whether or not we can get... I can delete this. Let's see whether or not we can get mouse position on viewport during each tick. But only, of course, if we are currently dragging. And then what we're going to want to do is all of this junk. The problem is that we don't have geometry. We're going to have to grab that on our own. We're going to have to figure out a way to get geometry. So that's going to be a fun little challenge. So this is the position. So this goes into the screen space position. But geometry, how do I get local geometry? Make geometry. Get player screen space widget. Get viewport widget geometry. Is that going to be right? How do I know it's the right widget? It doesn't take an input. If I want to make it into this widget's geometry, do I have to go through and break this out into individual widgets? For now, let's try it. We'll just try and figure it out. Worst comes to worst, we can just get the center anchor point of our box, right? There's a whole bunch of like DPI shit we'd have to worry about. Let's see if it works. If it works, good. If not, we'll figure it out. So we'll just go ahead and compile that, save it. Colt Zero stopped in. Hello. We're trying to figure out how Unreal handles UI crap, and it turns out there are some gotchas. Okay, so that's not working. Oh, it's not. Sorry, I shrunk it and I forgot to assign the value. All right, now come on, stop clicking on the wrong thing, you idiot. Twitch and Unreal have the exact same background color, so it's sometimes hard to tell which one we're looking at here. All right, so it is working. So this is, I don't know if it's working, but this is doing something. So I guess what we'll do now is we'll just put in a print function so that we can see it as it changes and play around with it. So print pachow. Save and compile. Now the reason we're being careful about this is because I don't actually know. Yeah, see how it says x equals 100? It's the wrong widget geometry. We're getting the widget geometry of every widget on the screen when we actually only want the geometry of one widget. The base of this object. So if we grab a... It's been a while since I streamed. I'm a terrible streamer, so you didn't miss much. Get cache geometry, get paint space geometry, get tick space geometry. I don't know what these are. Why can't I just get... Normally in Slate, we try and handle these issues by making a dependent widget part of a hierarchy. So, can I just get my position? Can I get position in viewport? Why can I only set position in viewport? Get alignment, get anchors. Is it not self? I don't have like I've got this out arrow, but I don't have a thing for the screen itself. Colt says that I might not remember, but he believes he mentioned at the time that he was doing console game modding, and he's now trying to step away from that to go back to custom dev stuff on his own, more just returning to the exact same thing he was trying to do before switching to modding. Console modding is rough, but modding itself I love. I used to do mods for almost every game. I sort of got out of the habit though. Now I'm just trying to figure out how to get this to work. So what we really need to do is get our position on the viewport, and I don't know how to do that. Geometry, absolute, local, or screen. Viewport, add to viewport, get alignment in viewport, cast to viewport. Cult Zero says he's interested in voxel engine stuff. Voxels are... if you're going to do voxels, don't follow my tutorials, because they've come a long way since then. If you try and do like Minecraft-style voxels, you might get laughed at. I mean, that's like a decade out of date. Get mouse position on viewport. Get player screen widget geometry. Project world location to widget position. Okay, so there's something... I guess we'll have to look it up. Let's see if I can look it up. Unreal widget geometry. Colt Zero says they're working with Voronoi diagrams, distance fields, ray marching, and sparse voxels. So that sounds like you're doing fine. You don't need my basic shit. Just for fun, you may want to look into Townscaper. That has a lot of fun pseudo voxel stuff in it. It's just fun to see. So feel free to take a look at that. Get viewport widget geometry. Gets the widgetry of all. You can use this geometry. Return value geometry structure. Gets the geometry of the widget holding. You can use this geometry to convert. Well, this is really unhelpful. It doesn't tell me how to get the geometry of just one thing. So I feel like I should be able to iterate through the geometry. I think I remember seeing an iterate through geometry See here this? Okay, so this is different. Okay. So it looks like this is going to be something annoying. How can we find where we are? So when we have a mouse down, we actually get this geometry reply, and we are going to promote that. My geometry. That is fine. We'll call it my geometry. And that's fine. That's fine. That's how we'll do it. So here in Event Graph, we will use my geometry instead of this. All right, so now let's see if it works. Ooh. Okay, so it's based on this. It's based on this. No, what's going on here? Why is it y100 here? X equals negative. So that's... So y of negative 100 going up is fine. I can live with that. But where the fuck is the center? Alright, so clearly I'm misunderstanding something. We're going to put in a different debug statement. And that debug statement is going to be this. Wow. Wow. Woo. Pachow. Okay, so when I click here, you can see how it says... oh, it didn't work. That's fine. You can see how it says x equals 121, x equals negative 36, 20, 5, 12. For some reason, it thinks that this is the center point, right here. Why would it think that? Colt says basically right now he's working on an idea of his own, not to directly store geometry voxels, but instead store a sparsely represented Voronoi diagram where each place in the Voronoi diagram can be used to reference the object. Sample a position, you'll know which object the position is closest to, and thus can compute the distance while remarching. I'm not 100% sure that's going to be performant, but I'd have to actually program it to find out, and as you can see, I'm doing much more complicated things, like trying to get the mouse to move. It's certainly a fun idea. Why does it think that this is the center point? What's here? Is there some damage done to the geometry data when I store it? Is it because I didn't make it instanced? Let's try it instanced. No, it's the same place. That's so weird. So if we take a look at the actual designer here, what I've got is I've got it set at 0, 0, 0. The Roland says, is there literally no documentation of this? I can't find any. If your Google Foo is better than mine, let me know, because this is weird. So you can see the alignment is set to 0.5.5, and this position is at 0, 0, 0 in the middle of this block. At some point, it becomes here. Now you might be thinking that that happens in the HUD somewhere. And maybe it does. So here's the HUD. And you can see that this is... Oh, well, there's something weird going on. The computer chip... Okay. So the border around the computer chip object is not what you would expect. That's probably the problem. But why does that end up making this... Is it... Okay, so is this something that actually changes? Let's go ahead and put it in the corner like this. And then compile it and save it. And let's see whether it's partially off screen. It is, in fact, partially off screen. Okay. And it's also got a different center point. You see that? The center point is now more or less in the middle of this, instead of where it was. All I really want to do is have this object here able to know where its center point is. So if we were to go into the graph and look at the construct here, out arrow has mouse capture target. Why is that there? I don't need that at the moment. Part of the appeal of it is that the geometry could be sampled at a higher resolution while remarching than the resolution of the Voronoi diagram. Well, that's true, but it's not any more complex or nuanced necessarily than what you would get out of oversampling a simple grid. It leads to some curves, which I guess is what you're interested in. In that case, I definitely recommend looking at Townscaper. It's very simple in comparison, though. So when we construct something, what we really want is to get the position on... Get orientation and position. That's head-mounted shit. Get canvas material. Get geolocation. Vinterp2. Get linear position drive. Oh, you know what the problem is? I figured it out. So the problem is this. The drag function. No? I'm never actually creating a drag. So there's an object, a class, that does dragging. And it's called widget drag in this case. And all that this does is it's just a struct. But, I mean, it acts like a struct. It's actually a very heavy class. But what I was thinking is that maybe we were using the mouse offset. We're storing the mouse offset. Although I'm not actually sure that's true. Yeah, so here we store the drag offset, but we never actually use it for anything. So I was thinking that maybe the drag offset was causing it to be... offset. But we're not using the drag offset, and we're not passing it to a drag function, so... All I can think of is maybe the geometry is rendered just off and damaged, in which case what we would want to do is... Well, the problem is we can't do any of this shit. Okay, so I have to rethink everything because it's not going to work. We can't get a mouse event on mouse move even after capturing the mouse, because it doesn't trigger if we're not actually on top of a mouseable object. So this is triggering mouse move events and mouse drag events, but this is not, because it's not on top of this object. So There doesn't appear to be any way to get it to be on top of that object or respond. Even if we say that the object has focus, it doesn't actually captures the mouse. It doesn't actually give us mouse updates every time the mouse moves. So one of the things we could do is, we can actually do on drop on this. One of the things we could do is we could have this object follow the mouse around, and then when you release it, it snaps. I think that's our only option at this point. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to go ahead and create a drag function, and we're going to move ourselves around. We do not need this anymore, so we're just going to delete all of this, not the tick though. Okay, so that no longer exists, and instead we're going to be doing this onDragDetected function. The thing is that we don't currently set up the onDragDetected very well, do we? We do. So here we do. We do detect the drag, and the idea here is that we're going to want to set our position here so that we are always going to be dragging towards the mouse. We don't actually need this part. We're going to want to just move that away. I don't want to delete it in case I need it. I will definitely need it. I just don't know how many places it is in. And I will just move that down here. I think we got this on mouse move. We are in fact going to keep it. Okay, fine. We'll keep it for now. Things are a little bit complicated because there's like crap. There's just junk. All right. So if we are dragging, then what we're going to want to do is get that local position, which is right here. And then we can subtract the local position. We can subtract the drag offset. And then in theory, we can set our position in the viewport. Like so. The problem with this is that we don't actually want to set our position in the viewport. We want to set the out arrow's position in the viewport. All right, well, let's see whether or not we can set the out arrow's position separately. All right, so this means that we can't do it the way we wanted to do it. We can set our position in the viewport, but we can't set the position of the image within the viewport. And there doesn't seem to be an easy way to get around that. Which means that when we're doing this detecting, we can't do a detecting on the parent object. We have to detect on the arrow itself, meaning that this whole setup is wrong. And there's no reason to continue doing it. So I'll just answer Colt Zero's comment here, and then we'll be done for the day. Just something fun to mention. He actually found something someone made where you can use a neural network to convert 3D models into signed distance field functions. Yeah, we used to do that with things like audio. You can use a neural network. I'm not sure why that's the best solution. I guess it's because neural networks are in vogue. But obviously, play around with whatever technology you can find and have fun. In the meantime, I'm going to try and get the mouse to move. See you around, everybody. Hopefully I'll be back to streaming, Saturdays and Wednesdays rather than just not. We'll see. Bye.